Welcome to this explainer. When we think about water shortages in America, we usually picture exactly what we see on the news, right? Massive surface reservoirs turning into literal dust bowls, and mighty rivers shrinking down to mere trickles. But the unexpected truth, and honestly, arguably the absolute biggest water crisis in the entire country right now, is actually happening entirely underground. It's completely out of sight.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're all pretty familiar with the visible droughts. Those shrinking surface waters immediately grab our attention and dominate the headlines. But there is a parallel, totally invisible collapse happening literally right beneath our feet. A massive subterranean ocean is slowly but surely vanishing. And because we can't just look out the window and see it, it's incredibly easy to ignore. But the scale of this unseen loss, it's simply staggering.
Let's start with Section 1, America's hidden underground ocean, also known as America's secret water.
So we're talking about the Ogallala Aquifer. Now, it's absolutely vital to understand that we aren't just talking about some small subterranean puddle or, few damp rocks. The Ogallala Aquifer is a literal geological marvel. It's a sprawling, massive underground water reservoir resting deep beneath the Great Plains. Before this water was tapped, this area was actually one of the driest regions on planet Earth. But because of this hidden ocean, it was miraculously transformed into the agricultural heart of America. Today, scientists universally recognize it as one of the single most important freshwater sources in the entire world.
1/3. Let that sink in for a second. It's a staggering number that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. This single, hidden aquifer irrigates nearly 1/3 of all agricultural land in America. Think about the food sitting on your grocery store shelves, or the grain in our massive silos. So much of it comes directly from this unseen water. And it's not just agriculture. This exact same reservoir supplies the daily drinking water for millions and millions of people.
That brings us to Section 2, the agricultural boom and the illusion of infinity. The contrast here is honestly awe-inspiring. Thousands of years ago, nature took millennia, drop by agonizing drop, rainfall after rainfall, to slowly fill this massive subterranean basin. But then, the 20th century hits. The irrigation revolution unlocked the technology to easily reach all this water. By the mid to late 20th century, we saw an absolute explosion. A massive agricultural boom and rapid city expansion spread dynamically across the Great Plains. We literally took water that nature needed millennia to store, and we just began draining it in a few short decades.
And this perfectly sets up our modern crisis. For decades, farmers simply drilled deeper and deeper into the earth as our operations grew. Whole cities expanded rapidly across the Great Plains, completely dependent on this underground infrastructure. You had millions of people relying every single day on water they could never even see. And because the water just kept flowing out of those pumps day after day, well, people built entirely new economies on the assumption that this unseen supply just beneath their feet would always be there. The supply seemed completely limitless.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how the story pivots. Section 3, why it is disappearing, the silent tragedy.
It all started with the first warning signs. A creeping realization just began to spread across the farming communities of the Great Plains. The water levels were actually starting to drop. The pressure in the pumps was noticeably weakening. That seemingly limitless ocean was, in fact, highly finite, and we were draining it at an unprecedented pace.
This collapse is accelerating rapidly today through a pretty fatal combination of factors. First, you have decades of relentless overpumping by agriculture, which meant the demand simply never stopped. Actually, it just kept growing. Add to that climate change, which is directly exacerbating regional droughts. So right when we need surface rainfall the absolute most, the skies are drying up, forcing everyone to lean even harder on these underground reserves. The mathematical reality here is just devastating. Groundwater levels are falling significantly faster than nature can replace them. We're pulling it out at breakneck speed while the earth replenishes it at an absolute crawl.
Let's look at Section 4, the economic consequences and a real-world fallout. Wells are running dry. And I want to be clear here, this isn't just about water levels getting a little bit low, or pressure dropping slightly so you have to pump a bit longer. No, for many out on the Great Plains right now, the water is completely gone. The taps are literally sputtering out air. The invisible ocean has retreated entirely beyond their reach.
So this isn't solely an environmental issue anymore. It's a severe economic fallout. Farms are deeply struggling to survive without reliable irrigation. You simply cannot grow crops at this massive scale in the Great Plains without water. As a result, farmers are making the heartbreaking decision to actively abandon their agricultural land, literally walking away from fields their families might have worked for generations. This broad economic fallout is threatening the stability of the entire region. Because, think about it, when the farms fail, the local businesses fail, and whole communities suffer.
Which brings us to our final chapter. Section 5. Can it be saved? The future of water.
Scientists are now issuing a really stark warning. Some of this water may never return. So the crucial point here is the permanent nature of this collapse. Once the geological structure of certain parts of an aquifer collapses because it's been pumped completely dry, the earth actually compacts. It literally loses its physical capacity to hold water in the future. So this isn't just some temporary drought that a few good rainy seasons will magically fix. No, for parts of the aquifer, the loss is forever.
And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast between exactly where we were and where we're going. We are leaving behind a limitless past of freely pumping wells, booming agriculture, and rapidly expanding cities. It really felt like an unstoppable golden age of growth. But without major, fundamental changes to how we manage this resource, we are walking right into a predicted future of struggling farms, completely abandoned land, and permanent aquifer depletion. If we just continue on this path, this predicted future is absolutely our definitive reality.
Which leaves us with a final, genuinely haunting question to wrap up this explainer. What happens to America when its underground ocean finally runs dry? When the agricultural heart of the country loses its absolute lifeblood, it affects every single one of us, from the food we put on our tables to the broader economy we all rely on. Take this question, dive into the research, and keep asking the big questions about this invisible crisis unfolding right beneath our feet.